Welcome everyone. Welcome to this EOA webinar organized by the Enhancing Opportunities for All project. My name is Leo Benedetti. I'm part of the EOA consortium working at Systematic Paris Region, the French NFP for the European Defence Fund, Alternate. Today we're going to discuss some EDF related matters. And especially how to prepare your proposal for the EDF deadlines. Some housekeeping rules for this webinar. So we are using the Livestone platform. As you can see, you have the chat box on the bottom right of your screen. You can ask whenever you have logistics issues or anything else. You also have the questions box right next to it, where you can ask the questions to the speakers. And you will be able also to download the presentation at the end of the session. And this event, I forgot to mention, but is part of the EDF Online Matchmaking Day number 3, and there will be also another one in 2025 after the EDF Info Days, beginning of May. Today we have the following agenda. So we'll discuss as first the EDF process and how to get an overview of how the EDF runs throughout the year. Then we'll focus on the financial aspects of the EDF proposal, and I will take the floor for the third part on getting support overcoming EDF, and we'll finish with a short Q&A session. So let's start with the first section presented by Victor Hartong, Dutch National Focal Point. Over to you, Victor.
Yes, thank you, Leo, and thank you for allowing me to present about the EDF process. The reason we chose this, the EDF process, is to also let the potential participants know a bit more like how the whole EDF cycle goes. So there's a lot of work before the publication of the work program, but even after submission, there's still a lot of work that is handled not only by the European Commission, but also by our ministries of defense. So that said, I'm Victor Hartong. I'm the National Focal Point alternate, just like Leo actually. But please note that I work at the Netherlands Enterprise Agency and I do not represent the Ministry of Defense from the Netherlands. That being said, let's go to the EDF cycle, and first the agenda, of course, what we'll discuss. Oh. Seems that the agenda is, I'll just go through the agenda. So first we'll discuss the glossary. So there's a certain amount of abbreviations that you will meet when you're looking at EDF work program, and if you are submitting a project. So we'll go through these abbreviations step by step. Then I will discuss the work program stages before publication. So there are several stages in the work program that will that are gone through before it is published. It doesn't appear out of thin air, unfortunately. There's a lot of discussion and work before it is published. Then we'll go through, have a look at the EDF cycle in total. So what happens, when does it take place? So before publication and after submission, working toward a grant agreement. I will not discuss what happens after the grant agreement. That is technically just running the project. And then I will have a bit more focus on where MOD is involved and in what way. Please note that that is very member state dependent. That brings me to my first abbreviation, MS/NO. That stands for member states plus Norway. That is something you will also find in work programs and also in the EDF regulation. Then let's look at the first on the list, work program. So technically in the work program, all the topics are listed for that year. Please note that there are several work programs actually. I think they're actually they're all split up, and you also have the multi-annual perspective. So that is also combined with the work program, but multi-annual perspective looks over multiple years, where the work program for EDF is yearly. Then we have the PC, which stands for Program Committee, and they oversee the EU funding program implementation. So the PC meetings are planned together with the European Commission, and there, for example, the draft work programs are being discussed. Then we have the calls. So for many, I think also familiar, the calls and the topics. So technically the calls are within the thematic destinations where the topics are listed. And I think I don't have to explain further because it says it pretty well on the slide already. Then we have the harmonization round. So in the draft work programs, first the topics are selected, and during the harmonization round, the text is further sharpened, and also the further requirements are involved. So in the harmonization round, it's actually also not the PC delegates that usually attend these rounds, but they're actually MOD experts looking at this text and further developing on the call text. Then if you are successful with your submission, then you will hear this, of course, during your the evaluation of the EDF a year, and you will be working towards a grant agreement. So, and that stands for GA. You will also find this abbreviation here and there, especially in the follow-up slides. So that is technically the legal contract you will sign with the European Commission. That will define also the funding conditions, and many of the aspects of your project will be signed in the grant agreement together with the Commission and also with the coordinator. Then some of you may know that there's also a memorandum of understanding. So the countries that are involved in the project, their Ministry of Defenses, they will sign work towards a memorandum of understanding and signing them. Technically, they sort of align with how to deal with the consortium that runs the project. And they make agreements among each other on how to work with the consortium. Then going through the next one, where we'll see the time cycle for the EDF work program stages. So this is the draft work program that doesn't come out of thin air, but it's actually member states and Norway that share topic proposals with the Commission. And then the Commission takes all these topic proposals, looks for alignment with some of the topic proposals, and comes up with the first draft of the work program based on the priorities that were listed in the multi-annual perspective. And from there, the topic proposals are generated. So that's actually the first work program that will be discussed then in this PC meeting. And in that PC meeting, all the topics are discussed among all the member states present. And afterwards, they give a certain amount of time to let the member states look at these topics and then provide feedback to this first draft. Then the Commission gathers all this input, creates a second draft based on the input delivered from the feedback by the member states in Norway. And of course, a second draft will also be discussed in a new program committee meeting where, again, the feedback, so that you see a sort of rotation happening there, where these topics are further being developed and also added and removed. So topics can be added and removed during this cycle. When all the topics are defined, then the topics are set, then they move towards harmonization. So what actually happens during the harmonization? So technically the topics are defined, like what the projects will be about, these topics, but the exact requirements are not in these topics yet. So during the harmonization rounds, the interested countries will discuss with their their subject matter experts. They will discuss what the exact requirements will be for that topic. And then when there are also a few harmonization rounds, and after that harmonization round, there will be a renewed draft work program where it will further be refined for the call texts, and the budgets also need to be determined. Of course, this is also discussed afterwards in the program committee meetings. When those things are discussed and also the budgets are determined in the PC, then there's a final, there needs to be a final agreement in a program committee to agree on the new work program. When that agreement passes in the program committee meeting, then the work program can be published. So you see now in the blocks on the top line, that's the year before publish, the work program is published, the several steps with the draft work program being developed, harmonization on the selected topics, refining these call texts and determining the budgets, and then the PC agrees on the new work program for that year. So then the work program is published, and yeah, things start to move for also the entities who are willing to participate in EDF and submit their proposal. With the publication of the new work program, the Commission also usually makes known that they will be organizing EDF Info Days. So this year there will be on 2 and 3 of April. And I think physical attendance is already quite difficult because there was a lot of enthusiasm for these days and interest. Sorry, let me go back to first, of course, the calls will also be published on the Funding and Tender portal. Why did I bring this blog about is that this is very relevant. If you are interested in one of the topics, you need to look for them on the Funding and Tender portal. There's a specific call document on there that you need to look at. So the work program, it gives lists all the topics and gives the relevant information, but the most recent and relevant information will be found on the Funding and Tender portal with the specific call, and there you can find the call document that is very relevant. Moving on, EDF Info Days in Brussels, as I mentioned, 2 and 3 of April. There the Commission will go through all the topics and new ways of submitting a proposal. So, of course, the Commission learns each year from how what their experiences were with submitting a proposal, and try to align this process always to become more easy and yeah, also looking at the templates. So if there are any changes, it's very relevant to follow the first day of the EDF Info Days in Brussels or online. And of course, there's a deadline for the EDF proposals. At the top of my head, it's the 16th of October this year. But please have a look at it yourself on the Funding and Tender portal. Then when all the topics are, all the projects are submitted and the deadline is closed, then of course, evaluation will follow. So please note that in the evaluation, first it's being considered whether the proposal is eligible, admissible, and after that they will actually start to evaluate the proposal itself. With the publication of the evaluation, then it's known first to the program committee. They will also have to agree on the results of the evaluation. Please note that it's more like that the Commission presents what the results are before they're publicly known. When the results are published, a second after that, both the grant agreement starts, but also the PSI. And I didn't list the PSI in the glossary because the slide was getting a bit full, but the PSI stands for the Program Security Instruction. So that's actually the agencies look at the project proposal and determine what level of security classification needs to be coupled to that project. Now, working towards the grant agreement, all kinds of negotiations will take place also within consortia. And then with the signing of a grant agreement within a few months, then the EDF project can actually start. I see questions are appearing, Leo, but we'll probably do these after the slides, I think, right?
Yeah, maybe let's keep a short Q&A session at the end.
Okay.
And we also have colleagues answering the question, Paloma Lopez Diaz, the Spanish
Perfect.
NFP.
So let's zoom in on MOD involvement within this process. So obviously, they propose topics to the Commission, as already discussed. And also they are heavily involved in the harmonization on the selected topics when they are interested in that topic. So they will also deliver the subject matter experts looking at these topic texts. Also, the program committee, of course, looks at refining call texts to overcome any interpretation differences, and also, of course, determining the budgets. Now, during proposal phase, so when the work program is published, you can, of course, approach your MOD to discuss potential projects. Actually, I think that would be much appreciated because they know what people are thinking, what industry is thinking about when submitting a potential proposal. Now, why is this relevant? Because if you, from your country, want to get involved in EDF, then also MOD plays a role there, especially for the development actions, because you need letters of intent to be able to eligible to submit your proposal. Now, if you are a coordinator, then your country, your MOD from your country is also in the lead of making sure that these letter of intents are collected from the other participating countries. So they need to also contact their colleagues from the other participating countries and ask them if they're interested for signing this letter of intent. Also for the development actions, in comparison to the research actions, which are 100% funded, development actions are not 100% funded. Where the MOD can have an interest, they can provide national co-funding. And that also has deadlines. Now, these deadlines are different for all member states. I think for the Netherlands, I think we have a deadline for 4 to 5 weeks. But that's the formal deadline. The informal deadline of informing the MOD that you have an interest is way earlier. But like I said, this is different for each member state with different procedures. So make sure that you contact your either national focal point or the MOD to ask what the procedure is for getting a letter of intent or getting a national co-funding. When this deadline has been passed and the evaluation is published, then together with the grant agreement preparation, also it's the start of the MOU negotiations. So MOU, as listed in the glossary, stands for Memorandum of Understanding. So the MODs, they sit together and they discuss, like, what can we expect from this project? How do we sit in this advisory board? Because all the member states that are involved in the project, they will participate in these MOU negotiations. Also here, the country that's in the lead, so the coordinator from that country, that MOD will be in the lead also for the MOU negotiations. And of course, you have the further administration for national co-funding, and there will be further involvement from defense experts with the project, since they will be in the advisory board with the EDF project. All right. Then one big disclaimer. So this is really member state dependent. And here you see also the MS-NO, which stands for member states and Norway, because that's the only associated country with the EDF. So please ask your national focal point or MOD what their process is, what the deadlines are, especially for asking for national co-funding. And I would highly recommend to discuss your potential project with them to avoid surprises. I think that is my presentation on how MOD is involved with the EDF and what a generic EDF cycle looks like. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor, for your presentation. I'm taking the advantage of a short break in between two parts to remind everyone to ask their questions on the questions box dedicated to it, rather than asking them in the chat. It would be easier for us. Now let's move on to the second part, and we have the pleasure to welcome Mrs. Rosa Gracia Carrera from the DG DEFIS, who will take the floor in a few seconds to present some financial aspects of the EDF proposal. The floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Leo. First, let me thank you for the opportunity to present some financial aspects of EDF, because this is a topic that after is a subject of many questions during the preparation of the proposals, but especially after when it's the time for implementation of the projects. So we realized that many errors or many considerations could be avoided if we prepare a good proposal since the beginning. So in this event today, what I propose the participants is to follow a bit the path on mock preparation of the proposal. So I will focus also in specific practicalities of the templates and some aspects that are the more prone to questions and errors. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning, from the perspective of a participant that is preparing a proposal. So you will go first of all to the funding and tender portals in the call that you are interested and topic that you are interested in to retrieve the documentation that is there. So the initial point is the call document. In this call document, of course, you have all the description of the action that is the subject of this call. And there you will find also characteristics of the financial grant, in this case, the characteristics of the financial aspects that you have to take into account for your proposals. Here, you're going to understand what is the type of funding that you are going to have in this grant, what are the activities that are required or are possible for the actions, which are the cost categories that apply to this action. So with this information, the document that you have to fill in to submit with the proposal to have the budget of the action is that document there, highlight, that is called detailed budget table. So this is a template that will be different depending on the grant topic that you are selecting. So there will be a template for lump sums and another one for actual cost grants. And also it will be a bit different if your action is in research or is in development. But the basics are in all the same. There are some differences and we will see a little bit how they are different. Okay. Then I have also a highlight there, another document that is the actual indirect cost methodology declaration that is going to be needed only for the beneficiaries that make the choice to use indirect costs declaration in actual cost. We are going to see this in a minute. So now, as I said before, in the call document, you will find what are the cost categories that are eligible in EDF and in particular for your action. In EDF, in general, we have this structure, a big block that is covering personal costs, another one for subcontracting costs, then a part for purchase, and then other costs. And then there is a specific cost category that is indirect cost that I mentioned before. So the budget of the action is always composed of all the eligible costs that you can find. They have to be allocated to these categories. And the same categories are used in all type of actions, in lump sums and in actual costs grants, in this part of the proposal. So what the difference between these two types of actions is what I try to show here in a picture is that when your action is in actual cost, your grant, in the proposal, you will prepare this detailed budget table with all the cost categories, the cost items, and after validation, evaluation and preparation and so on, this will be the estimated budget of the action will be part of the grant agreement. That will be an Annex 1 appendix and the Annex 2, that is the budget of the action. And then during implementation of the action later on, what you will do is to report your actual cost incurred. That can deviate a bit from those estimates, but are following basically the same structure of cost categories. And then the payment will be based on the analysis and ex-ante controls of those reported costs. Okay, so we go always in a baseline of costs all the time. In lump sums, it's a bit different because you are preparing a table of costs for the proposal, but if the action is selected, then there will be an next assessment of the costs, and the result of this will be lump sums. That is amounts that are predefined for the different work packages of the action. And this table of amount per beneficiary and work package will be the budget of the action. So in implementation, that the amount that corresponds to the work package, means the lump sum, will be paid if the work package is completed. And then there is no analysis of costs later on. So we passed from costs in the proposal and before signing the grant agreement to work completion during the rest of the action. Okay? So, and that is the reason why the two templates are a bit different in the preparation. So first, we are going to see an example of an actual cost template, detailed budget table, how it starts. And the first thing that we do when we are preparing the proposal is to establish the composition of the consortium, also in the budget. Here, we already have relevant information to provide because the size of the entities is declared there in the size of legal entity, and this has an impact then for the calculation of the bonus. Okay, when I talk about bonus, it means for development actions. We are going to see that later as well. But especially development actions, you know that the activities are financed at different rates. So it's important to define here the correct size of the entity and for the bonus to be calculated, okay? And in case that you declare SMEs, mid-cap, it has to be, the entities have to self-declare themselves as such, okay? The other important information that you already fill in here is the regime for the indirect costs. The value, let's say default value for this is 25% flat rate, meaning 25% of the direct costs, excluding subcontracting and other minor costs, okay? This is established in the regulation, but there is also another possibility, a derogation on this, that is the use of actual costs. If a beneficiary intends to use actual costs to calculate their indirect costs, has to take into account that for this, they need a document extra. The document that I showed in the first slide is the actual indirect cost methodology declaration. This document has a special structure when you have to explain what is the methodology followed to calculate these costs. And it has to be certified by a national authority with auditing capacities of this methodology that is declaring that they can certify that they are using this methodology for their calculations in their own defense projects. And not all member states have a national present authority that is able to perform this. So this is explained here, the two options possible, no? As I said, the flat rate that is going to be automatically calculated by the template as a 25% of the other costs, and the actual indirect cost. The little picture there is trying to mock a bit the structure of the declaration that you would have to present. And as I said, is not a document that is prepared ad hoc for a project or for the program. Is a document only that the national authority certifies that they are accepting this methodology of the beneficiary for their own projects. Okay. So once that we have that, we pass to another worksheet or tab in the template where we start listing the work packages of the action. Here, what it is important is to select the activity that corresponds to the work package. The activities can have different work packages, but one work package corresponds only to one activity. So, for each activity that we introduced in this table, the template will generate a different worksheet for the resources allocated to that particular activity. This is meant to be because then each activity will be funded at a different rate. So the activities that you can choose are listed in the call documents. Sometimes there are some activities that are mandatory, and then there are other activities that are optional for your call. So when you are finished with this, well, this is the first summary, an overview of how the funding rates work. So for actions that are research, everything is funded at 100%. And in the table, you can see which are the activities that are allowed for research actions. For development, it's a bit more complicated because there's a higher number of activities, and there is a funding rate that is the baseline. Then with the bonus system, this baseline funding rate can be increased to a maximum funding rate that is shown in the column on the right. But this bonus system is automatically calculated in the template from the information that you introduced. As I said, the bonus is composed of different factors. The participation, participation of the action within a PESCO project, the level of participation of mid-caps, and the level of participation of SMEs. So, okay, so when we come from the general description of the work packages and the activities, then in each of the different tabs that were created per activity, what we are going to fill in here is the detail of the resources that are needed and their costs. So here I selected an example of design, activity design that could be any. So in the first part, it is the staff effort, and there you're supposed to indicate only the number of person months that are required for each work package. Then there is a part for subcontracting. In this subcontracting part, you have to specify the task, not the task, but the subcontractor that it is already foreseen in the project, independently of the fact that you know already the subcontractor or not. If you know it, you can already name it. If you don't know it, you let it as unknown. But before using a subcontractor in the project, it has to be identified because the subcontractors in EDF have to be pre-checked to fulfill the obligations of admissibility, okay? So for subcontracting, it's important that you explain what are the tasks that are subcontracted, why, the reason why, okay? And then in the part of purchase is covering travels, equipment, other goods and services. Here, the most important point, I think, to understand is that equipment in general is always estimated and then reported the cost of the depreciation of the equipment during the reporting period, during the duration that you are estimating, okay? So, the total cost of the equipment has to be then, let's say, calculated for each activity or for the duration of each activity or work package to only declare the depreciation cost. Okay, but if I show you then an example of another activity that is prototyping, only for the prototyping activities, there is a possibility of having equipment declared and reported, then paid at full cost. But this is an option that has to be allowed in the call document. So if you can apply this option, you have to explicitly mention it here in the table that you are using a full cost option for this particular item of equipment. Okay. Then you can see that that amount in purchase, the total, it's cycled. So this is just to show you that once that all the tabs for the resources have been filled in, you go to the summary per activity and clicking in update content, then all those data that are inserted in the different activities are extracted, are migrated here in the summary table. But when you see cells that are blue, those cells have to be manually encoded here. So now you can see that the part that corresponds to staff, to employees, is not filled in, because in the other tabs you had only mentioned the staff effort, the number of hours. And here you will have to fill in the cost. The cost of the staff for the category A1, this is very important to, at this moment, reflect on how you will be like to report when the project is in implementation. Because in EDF, we have two possibilities: to report it as actual costs or as average costs. So this is the moment where you can establish your cost in one of the two columns. Why is this important? Because if you would like to change this way of reporting later, you need an amendment and you need a declaration on the methodology that you are using, okay? So the explanation of the difference is here. So the concept is the same. It's always for the cost of the employees that meaning that they have an employment contract with the beneficiary. And it's covering basically that the salaries, the social security contribution, taxes, costs linked from the contracts, from the national law, and etc. So if your choice is to estimate and declare actual costs, you have to do it this way. This is the methodology defined in the annotated grant agreement, in the guidance, in the funding and in the portal, okay? So first you have to calculate what is the maximum declarable day equivalence of the period reported. It means reported because this is meant to be for a reporting period, you know? So in this case, it will be for all the duration of the project. So the baseline that we have is that a person works 215 days per year. So the maximum declarable day equivalence is 215 divided by 12 and multiplied by the number of months of the period that you are considering. And then, of course, the daily rate is the actual personal cost of this person divided by the maximum declarable day equivalence. The actual personal costs are actual, meaning there are those costs booked for that member during the period. Of course, as now in the preparation of the proposal, you may not know what are the persons that are going to participate in the project, so you do an estimate on the staff that you have, okay? And when you are using average costs, means that in your company, you have a method, a booking methodology of costs for staff that is based on average costs. And then here you have to exclude if you are using costs that are not eligible for the program or other costs that are included in other budget categories, those you will have to adjust. Okay, but the average is not the average of the people participating in the project. It has to be clear that average cost mean that your company is following this methodology in a consistent way. It's your usual accounting practices is to calculate based on cost center or based on the category or so on. Okay. And then following with the explanation of the indirect costs, in the summary table, When the indirect costs are calculated 25%, they are automatically calculated by the template. But if you had selected indirect costs, you will have to manually encode the result of the methodology that you have explained and calculated in the appendix, in the declaration methodology. So the result of the application of the methodology to the project has to be encoded manually in another blue cell that you will find. Okay. Then at the end of the template, there are one per activity tab where the bonus are calculated. So the different entities, beneficiaries, are there, and depending on their participation or the share of the activity, it will be this is explained already in the tutorials and so on, but basically here it's enough to know that then automatically, depending on the share of SMEs, cross or not cross-border, and mid-cap, and the participation with PESCO, then you will have a bonus. Then it is automatically used in the calculation of the funding rate to obtain the maximum eligible contribution for your action. So here in the summary, we have at the end of the exercise, let's say, when we finish all the completion of the template, you will arrive to total eligible cost of the action, that are basically all the costs that you have estimated. And those costs will be then multiplied by the funding rate per activity to obtain what we call the maximum eligible EO contribution. Then there is, again, blue cells for you to fill in the requested EO contribution. The requested EO contribution of the template will be afterwards the amount of the grant. Why it is manually encoded? Because it could be that the maximum eligible EO contribution is higher than the ceiling established by the topic, the call, or some conditions, or because you decide to request another contribution. So you manually encode it, and it has to be always equal or lower than the maximum eligible EO contribution. Okay. Then, after evaluation, the total cost of the action and the maximum grant amount will be part of the award decision in the commission decision, and then they cannot be increased later on. Okay. And here we see then when the action is in implementation, how, let's say, what the relation of the budget with an actual payment is, let's say. We are in a situation of actual costs, and we have filled in our proposal, budget proposal, like I explained before. And then now this constitutes the estimates of the budget of our project. So we will arrive to a situation, this is of course a summary, no? It will go by beneficiary and so on, but globally, we would have different activities and cost categories funded at different funding rates. So if we had the situation on the table above, arriving to a requested EO contribution that is our maximum grant amount of 485 with situation. Okay, so the final payment, let's say the payment of the project in total, will be based on the actual costs that then, as I said before, can be a bit higher or lower of what was estimated, because of course then reality is a bit different. So you would present a report of your actual costs, and then we could, in this case, arrive to higher costs of the project, no, and a higher maximum EO contribution. But of course, the maximum amount that we can pay is the amount of the maximum grant amount that is signed, the grant agreement. So the situation would be a bit what we show in the table below. The amount to pay will be presented by you. So once that you have all the cost of the project and you arrive to your maximum new contribution, then you can decide how to distribute, let's say, the amount to pay per activity or to declare it in your financial statements. Okay. And also there are flexibility in transferring amounts from beneficiaries, from cost categories, so on. But in general, deviations from the estimate budget do not require an amendment, but any change in the action that are substantial changes to the description requires an amendment. So when you change an entity of the consortium, or you change an activity, or you change tasks or work packages, that requires an amendment, and then you will have to present a new budget. Okay. This is how the detailed budget table for lump sums looks like. Here, the basics are more or less the same as before, so we will see an example only of a tab of resources. The difference from the case before in actual is that in resources, already from the proposal, you need to specify as many lines as necessary per as staff you're going to have in the project. Then here I'll show you in the same beneficiary, this is not a normal case, but in the same beneficiary, let's say, the categories that we can have is say one employees declared as actual costs, as I said before, employees also that you can declare as unit costs. And then we have also categories A2, A3 are when you are having natural persons or seconded staff. And then a case that is very important for SMEs, SME owners that do not have an employment contract, then are declared, their costs are declared here in the category A4. This is automatically calculated because this is declared as unit costs. So there are some amounts that are predefined by it is, I mean, they are corporate numbers, and the only thing that needs to be declared is the place of establishment of the SME, and this will have an impact on the country coefficient use, and the rest is automatic. So you only declare the number of days worked in the action. In the summary of the table in lump sums, then you will have all the as before, all the summary of the data that you have encoded with the funding rates, calculating also the maximum eligible EU contribution. And here also, curiosity is that also if you had encoded indirect costs in actual, you encode a global amount, and then it will be distributed pro rata per activity. Okay, so at the end, this is not the most important table in lump sums, because then we will arrive to the table that is the let's say the table that establishes the lump sums. So from the data encoded, we arrive to the distribution of amounts per work package and beneficiary. Same as before, we have maximum, and then you have in blue the possibility to encode basically the same or lower than the maximum. And the amount that is the total per work package will constitute the lump sums that will conform the budget of the action. And the maximum grant amount will be the sum of all the lump sums per work package. Okay, so here we see then the example of how it would be a payment when we are in lump sums. In lump sums, then our budget for the action that is in the grant agreement will look like that, more or less. Basically, amounts per beneficiary and per work package. Then reporting period needs no costs there, nothing, no cost to report. only a report of what is the level of completion of the work packages by all beneficiaries. So only when a work package is completely completed, 100% completed, this work package is paid. So like in the example below, when only work package 1 and 3 are completed by all beneficiaries, so the corresponding part is paid. Okay. And then for more explanation and examples and particular cases for the cost categories and the specificities of EDF and the programs, you have to refer always to the annotated grant agreement. That is a document that you can find in the funding and tender portals in guidance. Okay. And that's all on my side. And if when you are preparing the proposal, you have any question, you can always send it to that mailbox, the FIS EDF proposals that we always, and before that, please check the FAQ section that many of the questions are already answered there. Okay, so that's all on my side. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Rosa, for your presentation. Very complete indeed in terms of how to handle the budget tables and so on. Let's move on maybe to the third part. We wanted also to discuss and present you some opportunities to get support throughout the whole EDF scheme. And as we answered in the chat, the presentation will be available very soon before we end the presentation. So be a bit patient. So regarding support opportunities that DigiDefis and the NFPs are providing, you can find very much links in the EDF DEFIS website. So there is an EDF webpage on the European Commission's website where you can find introduction to the EDF, the annually published work programs, and the core topics descriptions. You can also find some tutorials on financial aspects and other ones, like the PIC registration for applying and submitting the proposals, the SME and ownership control assessment procedures, and so on. And as I said, the link is available on the presentation right here, and you will be able to download it. DigiDefis is also supporting the applicants by organizing the annual info days, which are unfortunately closed for this year's event, but you will still be able to attend online for this year. So on the 2nd and 3rd of April in Brussels and online. The event will have as an agenda the presentation of the EDF calls, some guidance sessions provided to the applicants. You will be able also to attend pitching sessions from potential partners and pre-schedule one-to-one meetings with your future partners. And last but not least, the European Commission is having this network of national focal points, of which we are members, Victor and I. So we are NFPs that are nominated by our member state. Norway has also its NFP contact point. We organize information and promotional activities at the national level, such as info days that will replicate a bit from the Commission's ones. We advise and provide support on the Commission administrative procedures, rules, and application forms related to the EDF program, and we also provide advice on how to get those letters of intent, because the procedure is different from one member state to the other. And you can find your own NFP on the link on the slide. And about the EOA project. So the EOA project is an EDF-funded project, coordination and support action involving 17 member states, NFPs, national focal points. We have the objective to enhance the skills and network among the NFPs, to share knowledge and best practices on how to support best the EDF applicants and the beneficiaries when they are funded. And we also have the objective of providing additional support to the EDF community with new tools and events such as this very event that we are organizing today. We have a website where you can find relevant information on the EDF and the related initiatives. We have an event calendar, which is screening all the upcoming European defense-related events. You have also access to an NFP, a Find Your NFP tool, and there is an upcoming tool that will be released soon on Partner Search, which will be a platform putting together the community and allowing the participants to get connected. Matchmaking events such as today, we have both formats of online and on-site matchmaking events. The next online matchmaking event with a webinar informative session will happen between beginning and mid-May 2025. So stay tuned and follow the project on LinkedIn to have the information. On-site matchmaking events as well. The last one was organized by our Luxembourg partner, the Luxembourg NFP team, around the GovSatcom conference in late February. It was also a great success. Thank you very much. Now I propose that we go around the questions that were asked a bit during the session. Most of the questions were answered in writing by the participants, and I thank all the speakers and the backstage colleagues for that. But maybe Victor, you wanted also to come back on the lump sum way of function.
Yes, I think I would like to ask Rosa if she maybe can answer this question, because it's I think her expertise is very valuable here. Did you see the question from actual costs versus lump sums?
Yes, I think they're asking what about the technical part that is due, no, for the payments of lump sums or actual. I'm going to go back to this slide because, okay, it's not specifically mentioned there, but just to explain what it means. The difference is basically in both cases, the work has to be done. There are deliverables, there are actions to be performed, and the project officer will assess the technical parts of the action as being completed in both cases. Let's say. The difference is that in actual costs, we pay based on costs. Let's say we pay the action performed based on the costs that have been incurred. In the lump sum, the action is paid in interim payments only when the work packages have been fully completed, and the amount is not reassessed based on the cost of the entities. So we never come back to if the costs incurred by the entities are different, are higher or lower than what was established in the budget, because the budget is based on lump sums, then it's indifferent. We are going to pay the amount that has been assigned per work package. And then there was another question related to partially completed work packages. This is a possibility that exists only at the final payment when the project has not been fully completed. And then there is a possibility to assess if the Commission could pay part of a work package, but then there are no fixed parameters defined. It will depend on the assessment of the project officer, on the level of completion, and so on. And we have never had this case.
Yeah, following up, I think there's also an optimum between the amount of work packages that can be defined, right? Especially with different rates for different activities. then you need a certain amount of work packages as a minimum, depending on the call requirements. You have mandatory activities, which I think need to be split up in work packages. So that will be the minimum. But then there's obviously also a practical maximum to how many work packages one should actually make.
Exactly. It depends on the planning, on the planning of the action. No, one work package is mandatory per activity that you are developing. That's clear. But then there's no limit. However, there is one tip for lump sums. You have to take into account when you are defining the structure of your action, the reporting periods that we have, the duration of the project and the reporting periods, and the pre-financing that you're going to get at the beginning of the project. Based on that, you can do a correct structure that allows you to have like a flow of cash that is feasible for the project. Okay, so there are typically, tricks that you can use in lump sums that are advisable. For instance, if you have coordination work package, coordination and management, that is typically work package 1, it's not mandatory to have only one. You can split it in 2, one per reporting period, so that at least you get some payments in the middle. Or it's true, if you make a project in lump sums that all work packages end at the end of the project, then you get no interim payment. So maybe it's difficult for you to continue the project in the middle. So these are things that have to be taken into account. But these things can be then fine-tuned during the grant agreement preparation. So in the phase of the proposal, the definition of the work packages is more for the coherence of the proposal, the correct plan, the credibility, the feasibility of the proposal. These more practical arrangements can be fine-tuned if selected during the grant agreement preparation. I don't know if there are more questions for these financial things.
Seems pretty clear to me. Thank you very much. I think we answered almost all the questions, right? Let me just have a look on the questions box. We have a question on the EDF 2024 results. I assume that the proposals are in the evaluation phase still, so it should be published around summer. And then the project will begin maybe late 2025.
No, they will be known before the summer. They are finalizing the evaluation. We don't have results yet.
And I was looking this up, Leo. I think it says in the timeline early May 25.
Early May, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
So the idea is to start GAP earlier this year. So the idea is to be more efficient every year and start a bit earlier and sign a bit earlier.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
So I see one more question in the chat. For 2025, will there be coming any new funding instruments? I don't think there will be new funding instruments. However, I think what differentiates this year's work program is that in two calls, two topics out of the top of my head, Ukrainian entities can participate via financial support to third parties, so FSTP structure. And that is a big difference in comparison to the earlier work programs.
Right, and specific calls for these third parties are there on. There is a space-related call that allows Ukrainian entities to participate by accessing FSTP, financial support to third parties. And there is another one on drones, mass munition.
Yeah, I wasn't sure which topics, but Leo, thank you for adding this information.
Lots of questions are coming up. So
yeah, let's discuss a few more questions, and then maybe I leave it up to you. You do the time management, Leo, but the rearm it's just been announced, so I think everyone needs to still learn, and also I think the exact plans need to still be determined. But yeah, from this is technically, I'm not sure what impact that will have on EDF at this moment.
regarding EDF info days and the pitching sessions, I think you can get in touch with the organizing team to have your answers. The details on the calls are available on the Commission's website. You can have access to the work programs and read all the details. And within the slide, you can also have access to the NFP list that will be able to support you in all the remaining questions that we have. But anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. It was a dense program, and we are glad to have organized this. Now it's time for meetings on the B2B dedicated platform. Thank you again, Rosa and Victor, for presenting. We see each other in the next EOA dedicated event.
Leo, just one more question, I think, which is very relevant for many participants, is how can they get the presentation? I think one has to download them, right?
Yeah, right. So the presentation is available on the apps section, bottom right of your screen, and you have the handout, and it will launch the download.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. We good? Thank you very much. See you next time, everyone.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Bye all.